So I got bad news for the 24 Tacoma owners. They're breaking top shock mounts. This one's broken here. This is what it's supposed to look like. They're breaking their shocks when they do mine off-roading on these 24 Tacomas. Yeah, that doesn't look good now, does it? But worst of all, Toyota did this on purpose. Please realize that your 24 Toyota Tacoma is based on the TNGAF platform shared by the Land Cruiser 300. Yeah, your Tacoma's based on the Land Cruiser 300 in the world market, the real Land Cruiser. But guess what? Toyota didn't put any bump stops on the 24 Tacoma. Yeah, that's right. I'm not making this up. 0 bump stops. Let me explain, though. So Toyota trucks and SUVs have always had externally mounted or frame-mounted bump stops. Your new 24 Tacoma does not have that. That's right. The reason why the 24 Tacomas are blowing up their shock body heads or shock top mounts is because they got rid of the external or frame-mounted bump stop. This is a bump stop here. This is a protrusion on the frame. And this is the lower control arm. And every time you hit a bump, this lower control arm down here where the mouse is meets up here where the big piece of rubber is, and that absorbs the shock when you bottom out. So there's already reports of 24 Tacoma users breaking their shock mounts on the front, 20 miles in the dirt, and this particular user broke theirs. And this is real. This is not fake made-up YouTube nonsense. There's actually a problem, and that's Toyota didn't put any external bump stops on these new Tacomas. Basically, what happens is you hit a bump and your shock shoots up through the top hat or top mount, whatever you want to call it. Shoots up here, and it's not supposed to be way up here where the mouse is. This black rubber is supposed to be all the way down here where the bolts, where these nuts and studs are down here. So this thing just shot straight through its mount. Now, why did it do that? Well, here's the 24 Tacoma front end, and you can see here on this is the lower control arm where the mouse is. This is towards the front of the vehicle, I believe. And back here, follow the mouse, is the rear of the lower control arm. But what you're supposed to have here, and this is the frame here, you're supposed to have a extension from the frame, and then again, that rubber bump stop. So when this control arm goes up, it has some rubber to meet when you bottom out, and that's how Toyota has traditionally done it on their trucks and SUVs for decades now. That's standard stuff. Toyota knows this, but it's missing here. That's right. Toyota made a conscious decision to Mickey Mouse the front end of the 24 Tacoma suspension by deleting the tried and true durable front external or frame mounted bump stops and replacing them with internal or shock bump stops. Yeah, I'm talking about this crap here. This is a 90s era Mazda Miata. A 2,000-pound vehicle. And this is this white thing here is a rubberized bump stop, and when the shock body bottoms out, it's supposed to bounce off this rubber. And this is all good for sports cars that weigh 2,000 pounds, but it's not good for trucks and SUVs. But this is exactly the type of bump stop system you have in your new 24 Tacoma. But I said it gets worse because Toyota chose to do this. How do we know this? Because the vehicle it's based on, the TNGAF platform Land Cruiser 300, it gets not one external frame-mounted bump stop, but 2. Yes, you heard me right. This vehicle that the Tacoma is based on, the engineers designed it to get 2 frame-mounted front rubber bump stops. Not one like I showed you on the old 4Runners and Tacomas and Lexus GX 460s and Land Cruiser Prados, etc. 2. Not one, external 2. So this is the front end of the Land Cruiser 300 GR Sport, upon which the Tacoma is based on. Look at the control arm here, and you're going to notice right away an immediate difference. If we zoom in real close here, this is the lower control arm again. And unlike the Tacoma lower control arm, you can see 2 flat areas here. One here where the mouse is, and 2. And above these are 2 frame-mounted, big, beefy rubber bump stops. You got 2 rubber bump stops that they could have put on the Tacoma, because this glues right onto the Tacoma, but they used different control arms in a different system on the same frame. back over to the Tacoma control arm, and you can see those flat spots are missing. This is a different control arm on the same TNGAF platform, and of course up here we don't see anything on the frame as far as an external bump stop because there is none. So even though it's the same TNGAF platform, there's no external bump stops anymore. It's all up here in the shock body, just like your typical Mazda Miata that weighs half as much, and that's why Tacoma drivers are blowing through these top mounts here when they go off-road. Again, let's jump back to the GX460 4Runner setup, and the old Tacoma, I believe, was like this too. Here we got the external frame-mounted bump stop, and there's the lower control arm. So Toyota's playing around with this TNGAF platform in their frames. This is the frame of a LX600 or Land Cruiser 300, and here's where the mouse is, where the the control arm mounts. This is the forward, and this is the rear back here. Now these protrusions here are for the frame-mounted bump stop. There's a bump stop here, one, and then there's two. Okay, so this is the LX600 Land Cruiser 300, two bump stops. Now if we jump over to the Lexus GX550, we only see a provision for one bump stop. Here you can clearly see control arm mounts here, forward, rear, and in the middle, hanging down here, is a singular bump stop. So they're playing games with the Lexus GX550 too, in comparison to the LX600 and Land Cruiser 300 that get two bump stops. Your GX550 only gets one bump stop now. Let's go back and forth so you can see the difference. This is the oh, I'm getting mixed up here. Okay, this is the GX550, LX600. See the difference? GX550, one mount, LX600, two mounts. One mount, GX550. As we look up here on the Tacoma, the 24 Tacoma, and look at the frame, we don't see any protrusions from the frame that act as frame-mounted bump stops. They're just not there, as we already know now, right? So the Tacoma frame gets even less of the original TNGA platform intention, and it's causing problems because this is the bump stop mounted internal to the shock, like on that Miata, is now pressing up against this top hat, which I guess should be able to handle it theoretically, but you know, people are reporting that these things are busting. This is a normal looking one, but you know, it blows through. You know, when you hit a pump, people are reporting that this funny looking thing with these circles, you know, is basically press fit into this, you know, larger ring, and it just blows out. It either cracks, fragments, they lose it off-road, they don't find it, and then they're left with this, you know, rubber exposed, and the whole thing shoots up a few inches, and then it ends up looking like that. And this is all because Toyota decided to leave their tried and true design of externally mounted bump stops and go for internally shock mounted bump stops. And you know, this is a Land Cruiser 200 that you're looking at here, so the old Land Cruiser 200, and it also had two bump stops. So just like the new Land Cruiser 300 in the world market, the old Land Cruiser 200 had a one here and then another one either back here or over here. I forget which side, but it also had two. So can Toyota fix this? Yeah, they have the answer. They engineered the answer from the get-go. That's to have two external bump stop mounts and get rid of this Miata style, you know, in the shock bump stop setup that works on sports cars instead of trucks and SUVs. So all Toyota has to do to fix this is just go back to the original design, which you see here, where we have you know, at least two frame-mounted external bump stop mounts, but even one would suffice. Anything but what they got going on now, because Toyota is advertising these things as rough and tumble, fly through the dirt type of trucks, and you know, that's all good, but what we're seeing is people taking these things out, doing what they are, you know, doing what they reasonably expect to do, or what they see in the commercial here, is what I'm trying to ramble. And they're blowing out the top shock mount because they decided to get rid of the externally mounted bump stops that have worked for the last 40 years. Is Toyota going to fix this? They've got some thinking to do, but they do have the answer. They just got to weld on or bolt on, however those external mounts work, and put the right control arm back on. But either way, Toyota's playing games with the TNGAF platform and how they're divvying out which vehicle gets how many bump stops and in what configuration, internal or external. So I'll keep saying it. There are too many vehicles on Toyota's TNGAF platform. All Toyota trucks and SUVs are now on one singular platform. That's right. From your tiny, in quotations, Tacoma to your giant Sequoia, they are all on one singular platform. That's too many, and Toyota had to do a lot of consolidation. Previously, these vehicles were on 3 separate and distinct platforms. But now the 4Runner, the 25 4Runner that's going to come out, the Land Cruiser 300, the Land Cruiser 250, the Lexus LX 600, the Tacoma, the Tundra, the Sequoia, and the Lexus GX 550, they're all jam-packed on one platform, and Toyota's got to play around with the trims and this, that, and the other, because it's all the same car. So how are you going to make the price points work for the various trim levels, blah, blah, blah? Well, you're seeing it on this 24 Tacoma. They're screwing around with the most ridiculous stuff, like taking off the external frame-mounted shock mounts. Now, you might look at this GX 460 or Toyota 4Runner singular external bump stop mount, and you go, well, oh, that only had one. It didn't have two like the Land Cruiser 200. Well, this, again, was on its own separate platform. It was a smaller frame. It was a lighter frame. It was shorter. It was narrower. And it had a smaller engine, smaller transmission. It was so different from the Land Cruiser 200, the bigger frame, or that was also the frame that the Sequoia was on at a time. You get the point of my rambling, is that all of this stuff was tailor-matched and fine-tuned and fit its own application, whereas now everything's crammed on one platform. So how in the devil is Toyota going to sell you a Tacoma that is on a Land Cruiser platform? Something has got to give, something has got to go, something has got to get cut back, something has got to get deleted. Which is why you're seeing this right here. Hopefully Toyota gets it together and fixes this, because this is a clear case of cost cutting and cramming too much nonsense in different classes on one singular platform.
In this world, like lots of things, to know at last what we like the most. Women, horses, bay trees and roses, sweet ocean's games. We must trample underfoot to stop and down the flowers. We must often cry, say many goodbyes, and the heart forces to speak and roll, and the effect the leaves shall best a cozy. Sweet ocean's games. Ocean's games. my